Today I'm going to talk about the difference between a wizard and a shaman. Now, a wizard and a shaman share many similarities in that they both tap into unseen forces, unseen realms, as the source of their powers. One could say the spirit world, the world of consciousness, the world of forces. However, the way that they do it differs greatly. Their methodology and their practices are different from one another. The shaman relies on the spirit world, having a connection to spirits, having a connection to the human world through a culture, a tribe, or an indigenous bloodline. And their focus is usually healing, guidance, maintaining balance. They are the intermediary person between the gods and them, whereas the wizard is a practitioner. He has a methodology, a step-by-step practice that involves knowledge, spells, wielding power through study and ritual. So a shaman is connected to these spiritual forces as a sort of, one could say, medium, while as the wizard has extensive knowledge and practice of arcana that throughout his life he acquires and becomes more powerful in the realm of magic. They both, a shaman and wizard, can manipulate unseen forces to have an effect on the material plane, on our plane. But the way they do it differs in these ways. Now, shamans are usually connected to some kind of indigenous culture or bloodline, whether that be Siberia, the Native Americas, the Amazon, Africa. It is essentially rooted in a tribe, a indigenous prehistoric culture. It is the oldest religion in the world connected to animism. And so shamans rely on the notion that everything in nature is alive, is conscious. They are tapped into the great spirit, the source of creation. And so they are intuitive practitioners. They don't rely on intelligence the way wizards do. They rely on their wisdom and intuition to tap into the unseen forces, to call upon the unseen forces for help. Whereas wizards are primarily Western European in folklore and medieval lore. You have examples like Merlin, the wizard of the Celts. You have Gandalf in Lord of the Rings, and you got Harry Potter's Dumbledore and the other wizards in Harry Potter. However, there are other types of wizards found in Southeast Asian cultures, such as the Taoist priests and the Taoist practitioners who use talismans to recite spells to have some kind of effect on reality, whether that's for good fortune, health, or protection. And you can even find in Chinese media and movies this idea of a Taoist or Taoist practitioner being a kind of wizard. Once again, when it comes to the shaman, their source of power comes from a direct relationship with spirits, with ancestors, with nature, with spirit guides, with the world itself, and the source of all creation. This involves making partnerships, whether it's cultural, through family, or through bloodline, and often requires service to the people, service to the tribe. They are essentially there to serve. And they are often chosen by spirits to deliver messages, chosen by the gods to be the intermediary thing between the unseen realm and the rest of the people. And they are psychically sensitive, they are spiritually sensitive, they are gifted in the intuition and the wisdom and the sight of spirit. Whereas the wizard's power comes from study. This is where you get the trope of the wizard locked up in his tower, studying endlessly, reading scrolls, books, history books, folklores, where he masters techniques and rituals. So the wizard is focused on the intellectual and technical. Magic is a science. Think the Kabbalah, or think, for example, Hermetic practices. Think also the esoteric or occult secret societies. This is in the realm of the wizard's craft. Now, how a shaman enters these states, these altered states of consciousness to tap into this energy, differs from a wizard. They're both trying to tap into that, but the shaman relies on trances, drums, music, dancing, plant medicines, holistic methods, and it involves mostly expanding the consciousness of a person or themselves to go on a journey of the soul, to retrieve information, to speak to other spirits, and to negotiate with unseen forces. This is why they're considered a bridge or a mediator, and they are very similar to like a druid in the Celtic sense, whereas wizards are using spoken spells, written formulas, rituals. You could say also rune magic. They also rely on a source of power in an item that is imbued with energy, like a wand, a staff, a potion. Think Moses and his staff. Yahweh who gives him his power, but this staff is like the symbol of the source of his power. And they manipulate magical forces through knowledge and will. Now, a shaman is called spiritually triggered by some event, whether it's a near-death experience or they're selected by spirits in a ritual early in their life through a bloodline or through their tribe, and they are often initiated. And it is essentially a personal transformation where they step into that realm, where they gain the knowledge through their great intuition, through tapping into this source, so that they are very much more psychically attuned. A wizard has to learn through apprenticeship, through formal study, through self-taught mastery, through arcane arts, through knowledge. The emphasis here is that a wizard is rigorously an academic, so he acquires so much knowledge that through this knowledge he knows how to apply the science of magic in a controlled setting to produce results. And so a shaman is almost born or chosen, whereas a wizard, through sheer intellect and willpower, becomes a master of arcane arts. So how are they similar? Because they can do many things that each one of them can perform with their abilities. They can heal, they can divine the future, they can influence events, they can manipulate spiritual and unseen forces to impact the material world, but their methods and their worldviews differ. A shaman is chosen by the spirits, while a wizard essentially studies his way to the top to gain mastery over the craft.